Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. And the topic of our today's webinar is healthcare landscape in KSA in Saudi Arabia, the digital disruption in the health economy, and the rise of digital technology in healthcare sector. And I'm very pleased and honored to introduce you our guest speaker, our good friend of Estonia and e-resident, Dr. Mazen Gadir. Thank you, Mazen, once again for finding the time in your busy schedule and joining us today. Dr. Mazen Gadir is a director of partnerships, bid management and client relationships at IQVIA. Provide a government management consultancy. He's also an external advisor at the Executive Office for Organizational Transformation, Dubai Health Authority, with the responsibility for health strategy development, implementation, execution, and transformation. So I'm going to hand the floor now to Mr. Mazen so that he can introduce the the colleagues who are gonna be also part of our discussions today. So please, Mazen.
Thank you much, Ege. I always call you my Estonian angel. I appreciate it for introducing me to this wonderful nation. And as a good friend of Estonia, I want to bring in my other brothers to be good friends of Estonia as well. And that's why I brought today just a sample of the great talent that I've been working with, maybe I will start. I have prepared the slides, but I have the talent with me, and I know they're very busy, so I just want to give them 10 to 15 minutes each just to give you a bit of their story. But before I do that, I want to first of all welcome the I guess the healthcare or the Estonia healthcare delegation, digital health and biotech companies. I thank you so much for coming back, and this time you're coming back to visit a very important nation. It's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is leading the way across the region and globally in a lot of the transformation. It's not an easy a nation to describe. It's full of richness, full of culture, full of history. Whatever I've prepared in slides, or I can bring you from the beautiful land of the kingdom, the talent that I'm presenting with you during this orientation, or later on when we have to one-to-one, it's just a sample of this great economy and this amazing nation. So, so what I want to do, maybe before I start the slides, I just want to first introduce our panelists. I know they are here for 10 to 15 minutes each. I want to start with, first of all, Walid Al-Awad. He's the director of sales government in IQVIA KSA, and I purposely selected him due to his amazing network of connections and knowledge. Walid Al-Awad has been leading a lot of the activities in the Kingdom of Saudi for a long while, and he's been working in Fujifilm, in the diagnostic area, in the health IT area previously, well versed and well acquainted from Infinite Health Care to Sectra as a general manager. He's been in the leadership role from a long while, starting in King Faisal Specialist Hospital, one of the most amazing vehicles of innovation and research, and he's with us today. I also would like to introduce you to the next also panelist, who is Hamza Muftah, also sparing 10 to 15 minutes with us to give you also, he's the magician who architected some of the blueprint, digital blueprint in Saudi Arabia when he was a senior manager at PwC, and also an investor. He's a startup mentor and coach, board member in a number of amazing startups. He's been also a colleague, a fellow colleague back in the Cerner days, where he invaded this region back in his early days, as well as in his early professional days as a Cerner senior manager and architect in Saudi Arabia since 2006 or 5, before that. And again, he's on the call with us. And amazingly, we also have our third surprise, Dr. Mashail.
Hi, how are you?
The moons are aligned for me. Thank you,
Oh,
Doctor,
thank
for
you
joining.
very much.
All the stars are aligned. I have amazing subject matter experts. Dr. Mashail is also one of the most amazing talent that I've had the pleasure to enjoy working with. She is at the moment the Director of Health Economics and Finance Center in Al Faisal University. Previously consulted and managed a number of activities as HIC. She's a consultant cardiothoracic radiologist, which I've been trying to, pronounce, in King Faisal Specialist Hospital, and a fellow transformation lead who has been also working in a number of opportunities and positions trying to drive transformation. So maybe if I may just start, it's normally ladies first, but Dr. Mashail, if you allow me just to bring in Waleed, he might need to drop off in just a minute, with your permission.
Of course.
Excellent. So, Abu Nawaf, Mr. Waleed, if I allow you just to, it would be great to bless us with some of your thoughts and some of your experience in Saudi Arabia to the wonderful audience, delegations from both biotech and health tech companies as an orientation. This is just an intro.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mazen, and I hope that you can hear me.
And see you, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Mazen. I appreciate you, also the delegates from Estonia. It will be my pleasure again to touch point in the healthcare and the economy in Saudi Arabia. It's added value for us in Saudi Arabia to have this kind of discussions, and I'll be more than happy. You have thankfully presented, myself. I've been in the healthcare market for almost 20 years. As you described, starting from King Faisal Specialist Hospital and moving to the private sector. Currently, I'm leading as a director for the sales here in Acuvia for solutions from Acuvia, and even for the opportunities that has been heavily launched from Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia, and as well for the local and MOH.
Thank you so much, much appreciated, Waleed. And maybe to also give the opportunity to Hamza, just quickly, if you like to also give a bit of a background about the work you've done in Saudi previously and the work you're doing here.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me, Doctor?
Yes, can hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazen. Thanks for the kind words and thanks for the invitation. I'd be happy to do a more of a detailed presentation in the future to your fellow attendees. Obviously, I've been in digital health for over 15 years, working with Cerner on the Cerner implementations across the region, including King Faisal Specialist Hospital, one of the flagship research hospitals in the region and globally now. And then obviously, kind of in reference to my recent projects at PwC, we're really working with the Ministry of Health on the digital strategy and the transformation of the ministry to being a super regulator and delegating their duties in terms of provisioning healthcare services to the holding company, which was officially declared recently, and the clusters. And like I said, I'm happy to provide at the later stage a more of a detailed assessment of that work we did and some of the key findings. In addition to that, I worked on the digital blueprint for 8 of the clusters in the Kingdom of Saudi. And really that was more zoomed in terms of the digital solutions. But in addition to that, we looked at the various layers in an architecture. So we looked at the business architecture, which included the clinical services that are performed and conducted as part of the clusters. What are the facilities that are part of those clusters? And then obviously, what is the long-term solution and integration architecture? And that obviously included the EMR solutions that were inherited as part of these clusters, and looking at best practices around how to conduct or perform or have a shared services either at a national level within the holding company or at the cluster level. And there was also a lot of design thinking workshops and discussions with the various stakeholders, including medical, business, IT, and other executives as part of that. So that's me in a nutshell, Doctor.
Excellent, much appreciated. And moving to the best, also saving the best the last as well, starting with the best and ending with the best, Dr. Mashail. Just a bit of introduction before we deep dive in the second part.
Thank you very much, Mazen. It's hard to compete now with whatever I've heard. I consider myself the expert on the content side for digitalization and transformation. We always look at digitalization as two parts: digitalization as a capability, and then the content or the problem solving and the solution. And I'm always good at tackling out problems and trying to help solve them. Most of these were around financial management, process improvements, optimization. Lately, being a radiologist, I had some interest in artificial intelligence. However, I'm tackling that from an economic perspective. So whenever there is a financial economic perspective from digitalization, you will find me always interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. A marvel and an amazing entrepreneur as well, Dr. Mashail. An example of the female leadership that we have in this beautiful kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I appreciate it. So maybe just not to waste time, I have a difficult challenge, matching the might and the beauty of this kingdom to the beauty and the innovation of Estonia. In resemblance, we're getting a biotech and a health tech delegation who wants to bring in and look at some of the great opportunities. Maybe Walid, from your side, if I may just ask you, maybe what are some of the lessons or some of the lessons learned as you've been working in this field in Saudi, looking at the amazing transformation strategy and healthcare strategic shift that is happening in Saudi? What is your advice? And knowing that Estonia will have a big pavilion, hopefully in 2030, when Saudi will host the expo. What is your advice for the health tech and the biotech companies? In a nutshell, looking at the big strategic shifts.
Yes, Dr. Mazen, thank you. It's a good question. And I believe this is the strategy, I think, for countries that are already trying to invest and expand their footprint across the globe. From Saudi Arabia point of view, I believe there is a huge potential happening. What I have seen here from the past, from the experience as a local person in Saudi, we have seen a major transformation with the new leadership from the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, and the innovations that it's happening across the board in Saudi Arabia. When we talk about numbers, I believe, Dr. Mazen, you have some figures that can be shared with the Estonia people and the team. I believe that the figures, it's promising when we talk about the investment that is happening. Personally, I have been heavily working in the healthcare sector and biotech. I have seen, massively new projects and new initiatives that is required. The country is looking forward, to work hand in hand with other countries. I have been engaged with the Minister of Investment, Engineer, His Excellency Engineer Khalid Al-Faleh, during the visit of the President Biden to Saudi Arabia. We see the numbers that already has been shared with us with the potential market that need to be, investigated more and have potential, to invest over there. We have seen different sectors with regards to Ministry of Health, holding company, Ministry of Investment, PIF as well, which is they are opening their doors to see the new era and the new investment that it's happening. Usually, they are looking for more to a partnership there's a huge potential, to go further in these potentials. We recently, there's again, projects has been released for a national program. When we talk about the insurance platforms, when we talk of, transformations and consultancy, and the team here, they can, elaborate more in that aspect. But in a nutshell and overall, the market here is promising with regards to in the healthcare. Now there's a movement to the artificial intelligence, as Dr. Sha'al mentioned just now, and even we have been worked heavily with Sadaya, PIF, as well with the Ministry of Investment, building the roadmap and innovations for them. Yeah, hopefully I have added to your comments.
Absolutely, you've left us with beautiful spices. I really appreciate it. And I want to also comfort the audience. You will get accustomed to the acronym, Sadaya, PIF. I'll talk to you more about that as we go through the slides. For the benefit of the time, I want you just to get your ears flavored with this amazing knowledge. Thank you, Walid. Appreciate it. Maybe, and again, feel free. I'm just gonna do one round of questions. If you have to step out, by all means, I really appreciate this time. Hamza, coming to you, I know you've worked heavily in the digital blueprint in Holding Co, and as well as in the digital strategy, the refresh for the Ministry of Health. What are some of the spices that you can bring us close to?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. So, I mean, I think in a nutshell, in summary, obviously, in terms of the digital blueprint, there was lots of key findings in terms of, fragmented solutions. There's opportunities for, platforms that bring in various solutions to the market. The EMR landscape is obviously very fragmented. And there's opportunities to bring in a platform that can unify a lot of these services and integrate a lot of these. Obviously, Nafis, which is the Health Information Exchange, is another very interesting project that is going on at the moment from a clinical and financial perspective. And I know, CCHI as an entity is also engaging with a lot of the private sector. So there could be a lot of opportunities to collaborate on a platform, a national platform such as Nafis. And I know they're working on they have a certification program, and they're looking at a lot of startups to collaborate with them on that side of things. And I think public-private partnership is also really booming and growing in Saudi Arabia, in terms of private companies collaborating with, like earlier mentioned, with the holding company and the clusters. So there's a lot of opportunities to lots of gaps in the market. So there's a lot of, really bringing a lot of these startups and understanding the Saudi landscape, of course, is going to be very important. The regulatory environment, the key stakeholders, it's KSA as a landscape is evolving very, very fast with newer entities, obviously, such as Sadaya, the clusters also having a major role. The telco providers also interesting, also getting involved in a lot of national initiatives. So I think my biggest advice to a lot of startups that are exploring the Saudi market is really to be on the ground, interact with the right stakeholders, and really obviously understand what problem you're trying to tackle. The problem, the solution to that problem could be different in Estonia to KSA, or like any other country in the world. So really understanding the landscape. That's it really, Doctor. And obviously I can, in the future, do definitely more of a detailed presentation on some of the key findings in the strategy we did in the group.
Absolutely, really appreciate it. I like your advice, and I really appreciate it. Again, like Walid, I will be definitely more than happy to schedule that 1 hour more deep dive. I really appreciate your advice. And to the audience, you can please reach out to our wonderful scholars today. I will make sure that Ege shares their LinkedIn. They are very well known in the community here, very well respected, and I am pleasured and privileged to actually always be in their company. So thank you, Hamza, for this. And maybe I want to bring the attention now to Dr. Masha'il. loaded with so much information, specifically to biotech as well. Your experience as a specialist, you're one of the highly regarded clinicians and physicians, specialists and consultants in Saudi Arabia. You have a diverse background with a huge love to health economics, which I hope I could have met you today in the Emirates Health Economics Conference. But and you are chairing a huge health economics conference over the weekend, which I look forward to. Maybe what is nutshell? Don't worry, I don't want you to but share with us your passion. What sort of advice would you give them?
I think when it comes to digitalization, usually one of the main deliverables or the outcomes is the data. But data will always remain redundant unless it is transformed into decision making. For me, if I would advise anybody involved into digital platforms and for those startups, is to make sure that they try to connect the dots and look at the final end in terms of decision making. I think we end up many times with a lot of data, big data. We talked about, unifying the platforms, so that's also an important aspect to consider. But I think, what does that data mean in terms of informing decisions? Because today all the decision makers in the kingdom, in the healthcare sector, are really looking at their leadership with one component that is determinantal. Which decisions should we make? So I think digital transformation should sort of embrace that decision-making process and make sure, whether through modeling, through informing decisions, that this data is really relevant to the ultimate practice.
Excellent, excellent. And Doctora, you're a researcher, and KSA is very well funded and established in the area of research compared to other GCC countries here. What would you actually say about research in Saudi? Just a few sentences or statements.
Okay, so there are a few things. Actually, one of the initiatives under the Health Sector Transformation Program is the Saudi National Institute of Health. The Saudi National Institute of Health, or SNIH, is the entity that will be sort of driving translational research from the lab to the practice, and they are really looking for certain topics. And I know that artificial intelligence in particular is one of their major areas. There has been circulations made to the universities. We at Al Faisal University are also bringing collaboration with SNIH that is tangential to artificial intelligence, but centered around SNIH capabilities.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Doctora. This is really a different type of field. Estonia delegation was in the UAE last year, and they looked at what KSA can offer, and I think you guys are up for a good treat coming to Saudi Arabia. So I really appreciate that. I think, again, maybe final comment, Doctora. I don't want to hug you any longer into the call, but we will have a deep dive, a 1 hour deep dive. Thank you for your time. But what sort of final comment?
Well, all I could say is that I will be happy to look at the different profiles that will be shared with me, and definitely maybe we can bring some ideas and brainstorm together as we move forward towards November. So looking forward.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Mashail, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. If any Estonian is available to fly to Riyadh, we have a wonderful conference. I will leave the link for you guys to join. And Dr. Mashail is chairing the scientific board and one of the founders of this amazing conference. So I really appreciate it, Dr. Mashail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So I think feel free to stay, Doctor, as well. I'm going to present some slides on Saudi, and if you want to interject or you have to leave, up to you. I go ahead.
No, I'm just saying thank you very much. I will have to excuse just because, as you know, I'm running now on the conference, so I'm trying to finish. Thank you very much. See you back in November. Bye.
I'll see you. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. So
Dr. Mazen, and the team. Again, it's amazing discussion, and I believe the delegate from Estonia, from local, from Saudi, you are welcome. I'll be more than happy to help and support. Trust me, there's a huge potential over there. I think we have several engagement. I will recommend, starting with the AMISA, Ministry of Investment, and as well with the Ministry of Health, with the leadership. We can, work and scheduling some leadership meetings with the delegates from Estonia, as well from Ministry of Investment and Ministry of Health. So I'd be more than happy to do that, Dr. Mazen. I think I will leave you for the continue of the presentation. I don't want to take more of your time, but as a close comments from my side, welcome in advance to Saudi, or the team with Dr. Mazen as well, and more than happy to participate if you need me in the future. I have another meetings I have to drop off, and we'll see you soon, inshallah.
Much appreciated, Abu Nawaf. It's such a lovely time having you. Thank you, and all the best with this meeting.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mazen. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I think this is a quick preview of some of the deep dives that you will have hopefully in November. Those three amazing people will be part of hopefully the list that we are preparing for you. As I told you, the magnitude of what we are doing is huge, and hopefully will be beneficial on the long term, and hopefully on the short term. Okay, so Ege and maybe the rest of the team, are you okay so far to start the slides?
Yes, absolutely. Please share the slides. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So what I did, I just want to show you, as I was listening to the wonderful panelists, I try to keep track of all the authorities, organizations. Can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Mazen. Continue, please.
So I kept track of all the links that they've mentioned. They've mentioned so many acronyms. I'm sorry, just my laptop just froze, so I'm just giving it a minute to so many links that I've shared. You are able to see my screen?
Unfortunately, we can't. Now we see your screen.
Perfect.
But
I just want to show you not the presentation. That's good. That's where I want to take you. So some of the names that were mentioned by the panelists, like MISA. MISA is the Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia. You heard a lot about the Health Holding Co. You also mentioned, they mentioned a number of other acronyms like SADAYA. I've opened these as well. So NIH, Saudi National Institute for Health. I'm going to leave you also with an interesting panel discussion that has happened during Davos in the World Economic Forum. One of the most amazing sessions that actually talked about the innovation that are in Saudi Arabia. So, okay. So I think without further ado, I think one more mentioned the SADAYA, which is the Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority. SADAYA itself is an institute that reports directly to His Highness, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, and it's a very interesting organization. So, okay, let me take you through the many slides that I've prepared. And again, this topic is very vast and extremely huge, and I think the only thing that I want to start with, looking at the Estonia flag. Luckily, it's Estonia, right? So I didn't mix the flags. I hope and that's why I'm wearing blue, in case I mix the flags between Estonia and other Baltic countries. But nonetheless, I think as an e-resident, at least I should get the flag right. Okay. What I prepared an agenda that allows us to visit a number of things. There's so much that I can share with you. And starting with the panel discussion just gives you the spice of how this this nation and this economy needs a lot of focus. And what you've done in the UAE is amazing, coming into the UAE in the last year and before that. But Saudi is a bigger piece in a bigger economy, definitely, that requires more and more relationships as well. So I'm going to give you Saudi in the context of GCC, just to give you a reminder. You must have seen these slides previously, but I'm going to keep just reminding some of you on these slides, and then you will see new slides after that, because I've done a lot of work to try and give you a flavor, just a flavor. I mean, I can go for days, and if you were lucky like Romer and you were able to attend the global health exhibition, I mean, 12 hours is not enough to just get to meet the different stakeholders. Saudi is almost a 38 million population, with a GDP that crossed already $1 trillion. You'll see this slide again. So the region, I don't know if you can hear me still, but there is a lot of digital transformation in this region, right? A lot, led by Saudi Arabia. Most of the investments that in the digital transformation in this region sits in Saudi Arabia. But what I wanted to share with you, some of the big also news that is happening around us. You've already sat with me last year on the UAE, but this year I want to release some information on Saudi. And you can see Saudi, they have been working hugely on unification of their digital health platforms, and they've created 3 releases for that. The project, the main project, the spine of Saudi Arabia digital health project is called UniPlat. In other words, they call it NAFIS, National. NAFIS stands for National Platform for Health Information Electronic Systems, NPHIES. And I'm going to always go back here because everything I'm going to share with you has a website. So you will end up with like 300 websites today, at least, if I'm not wrong. But NAFIS is a byproduct of an entity called Council for Health Insurance. NAFIS itself is an acronym, National Program for Health Information Electronic System. And this acronym in Arabic means, NAFIS in Arabic means something valuable, right? Something precious. Remember, I don't know if you've seen Lord of the Ring. Precious is exact translation of the word NAFIS. And that's what it is. NAFIS is 3 things. Number 1 is what we call the health finance financial services integration platform, connecting all the payers and the providers together to submit claims in one centralized post office. NAFIS is also the what we call the clinical services integration platform, the health information exchange. And NAFIS is also whatever sits on top of that, registries, disease registries, patient portals, and whatnot. Right? So NAFIS is what we used to call UniPlat, or they used to call this unified platform. And it's the master highway that connects all the payers, the providers, insurance companies, and hospitals in one unified health finance financial services integration platform. It unifies the providers from both public and private sector into one clinical service integration platform, and it brings in the capabilities to build disease registers on top. So far, if you go back to the world UniPlat or NAFIS, R1 is the financial services integration project program. They call it Release 1. R2 is Release 2, the health information exchange or the clinical services integration platform. R3 is Release 3, what comes on top of that from disease registries and whatnot. They've paid hundreds of millions of dollars in consultancy to actually IBM, GE, PwC, EY, to actually put together this huge giga program and lump all the different digital health transformation projects and initiatives underneath it. Okay, so this how big this program is. So far, they've awarded Release 1, which is the health financial services integration platform, to a company called Sihati. It's a special purpose vehicle. This special purpose vehicle now is contracted by the Council of Health Insurance to conduct this program. And again, I can set for a whole hour just on Nafis to give you a bit of an understanding of this huge program. Release 2 was just awarded to a combination of local companies like Ascend, Lean. These are the big health tech players, local health tech players within Saudi, and they brought in companies like Orion Health, Rhapsody, and whatnot for health information exchange and patient portal. And then Release 3, which hasn't been yet awarded and is still in the process of, I think, procurement later on this year or early next year. And then the different areas of clusters. You heard the word clusters as well in Saudi. I'll tell you what clusters mean in just a minute. And then you will have something called Vision Realization Organization or offices. And then you've heard Holding Co. You've heard Ministry of Health, Blueprint, and whatnot. So there's a lot going on in Saudi, and all what I was just telling you, by the way, if you lost attention, is this area here. I'm just talking about this area only. So again, in the midst of this region, there's a lot of transformation happening with a lot of programs and projects. The stakeholder in Saudi is even more complex than what you see here, because again, the complexity of the ecosystem in Saudi Arabia brings in insurance companies, pharma, life sciences, distributors, research centers that now becoming a huge focus of the kingdom, a number of employers, and it's very important to understand the concept of the ecosystem, because again, sometimes as a new entry partner or a new entry company into Saudi, the best way to start your first few years in infancy doing business in Saudi by partnering with existing giants. Keep that in mind, by the way. If I move you, COVID-19 definitely has made us always think on what's the next innovation. And Saudi Arabia has played and invested a lot in the area of digitization during and post COVID-19. And the idea of coordinating healthcare innovation during pandemic to care for over 35 million people in a huge kingdom like Saudi Arabia, that was a challenge, and they've mastered it so well. And I think the coordination between the different governmental entities is immaculate, because don't forget, over 70% of the funding that comes into healthcare or the expenditure in healthcare is led by government. But if you look at Saudi Arabia, they are knocking the doors of biomedical science and genomics, and they're getting into AI and data science. They're getting into AI and data science so fast that they created a huge body called the Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority, with a huge mandate, by the way. And that could be also, discussed in a further, in more details as we go through the different slides, or later on as we go through the interviews. Definitely the need for human capabilities in Saudi Arabia is huge. There is a lot of good universities in Saudi with huge funding. One of them is one of the examples that I could think of is King Saud University. Keep an eye on that. One of the master or leading universities, especially in the area of health informatics and research. We have huge research centers like King Abdullah Medical Research Center. We abbreviated as KMARC, K-I-A-I, King Abdullah International Medical Research Center, K-A-I-M-R-C, KMARC. Okay, and that is belonging to the National Guard Health System. And Saudi Arabia, you have huge public health systems, right? You have the Ministry of Health that looks after 290 different hospitals and over 5,000 primary care centers, something like that. You have also the National Guard Health System, which is an ecosystem that caters for over 3 to 5 million people, right? We have also the MODA, Ministry of Defense, which is again a huge health ecosystem, as well as we have the Ministry of Higher Education, which also has its own medical or healthcare ecosystem. So these huge health ecosystems are considered public sector, but they are divided across military or National Guard services or public Ministry of Health, or you have the higher education, the Ministry of Higher Education that runs a number of medical cities or university hospitals as well, plus the private sector. Okay, so it's very important to distinguish how big and massive the public sector in Saudi Arabia is. And they regard education and research hugely. So if you look at the amount of investment, the medical education strategy that sits within Saudi Arabia, there is a lot of work in this area, a lot of partnerships with the universities from the US, from Australia, from Europe as well. So they regard education and research highly. A lot of the Saudis actually go for internships, medical internships abroad, as well as a lot of the Saudis who go to study abroad on scholarships actually come from the digital background. So there's a lot of technology enabled workforce, Saudis who have traveled abroad and actually picked up either computer science or digital related certificates. So it's a huge area. What I wanted to also show you on this slide, the immigration is changing in Saudi Arabia. At the moment, one of the biggest issues is to actually retain talent. Saudi Arabia has introduced the green card residency, which allows a huge amount of people to actually apply for residency in Saudi Arabia, and they can actually purchase or buy houses, or buy land if in certain areas. So again, Saudi Arabia has a massive push, or has shown a massive push towards more immigration, more relaxation for their immigration laws. So keep that in mind. Again, with Saudi Arabia, you'll always see that medical tourism into Saudi is a huge national priority, due to the fact that they have very famous oncology centers of excellence. Like, for example, King Faisal Specialist Hospital is one of the biggest centers of excellence in the region for oncology, as well as cardiovascular complex procedures. Definitely, there is a huge reliance on the private sector. And if you look at the private sector in Saudi Arabia, it's highly dominated by family-owned businesses that have started going public as well. So, for example, we have the Saudi German hospital that belongs to a huge investment group called the Al-Batarji Group. We have Sulaiman Al-Habib Hospital, which is a very well-known hospital in the region, and they are internationalizing like crazy. They are going public. We have also Al-Faqih Research and Healthcare Group that has one of the most renowned research centers as well in the private sector. So these are all known household names. So Al-Habib, Saudi German Hospital, and Al-Faqih Group. And they are also, you can see that because they are also acquiring and establishing their brand in the UAE and Egypt. They're internationalizing and going abroad beyond the borders of the kingdom. And then the demographics. Saudi Arabia, I mean, only 10% of the Saudi population is actually foreigners, which says, I mean, out of 40 million, sorry, 25% maybe, coming to around 20% of that can be foreigners. The rest are actually mostly locals. So Saudi are really a huge nation with over 30 million citizens, locals, and 10 or 8 to 10 million international workforce. Again, I'm just giving that rough number, but don't forget, Saudi also has naturalized. They drive naturalization of other foreign nationals to become Saudis due to the vast relationships that Saudi had historically with other nations in Africa, in Asia, and whatnot. So again, a very interesting demographic flavor in Saudi. And then obviously the recent drive for wellness and connectivity across all Saudi. Saudi has one of the highest numbers for social media use and digital footprint. They are very highly digitized, specifically when it comes to the the younger nations, and they're investing heavily into that. So if I just compare the health systems between Saudi, Qatar, and UAE, Saudi has been running on a centralized fashion for the last 15, 20 years, running their healthcare on a centralized fashion. But now, because of the rise of clusters, and I'll come back to the word clusters, there is a huge drive for decentralization and a huge drive for privatization. Those two words appeared in the national health agenda that has been orchestrated and designed by many consultancies like GE, IBM, EY, and PwC in Saudi Arabia since 2015, 14, and 13. So again, clusters is a model where they can actually divide the kingdom into regions, and then the regions can be divided into clusters to manage and to decentralize funding, to decentralize regulation, and to allow more investors to come in and private sector to come in and help to move the digitization and innovation into healthcare. Qatar, obviously, small country with 2.5 million people, centralized, but UAE is a decentralized model. And again, I think Saudi is learning a lot from UAE. They are moving into a decentralized model after years and years of deliberation and revision, and actually discussing the frameworks, the many frameworks that they came up with consultancies. Highly complex, by the way, the Saudi market and the Saudi healthcare system, very complex in the sense that it will only, I mean, they have seen that sustainability of the health system is to reduce government funding. They cannot continue funding the government, even though Saudi has recorded this year one of the biggest profitable budgets on a national level. They've gone surplus in 2022. They've been actually on a negative budget for the last 10 years, and this is the first year on a surplus due to all, obviously, the energy crisis and the huge privatization drive as well. Okay, and number of the issues that we've seen rising up is workforce, and that's why there is a huge conference on the 2nd and 3rd of November called the GCC eHealth Workforce. This conference is actually, it's a non-for-profit initiative that allows people across this nation, across these nations in the GCC, to get together and talk about some of the big gaps that they are facing, especially in Saudi. Saudi is a huge health ecosystem, and a lot of the people who sit on the chair, or actually sit on the board of the scientific board for this initiative, the GCC eHealth Workforce, and it's abbreviated as ZIMAM, right? They are hugely involved in trying to find ways to graduate or bring in foreign talent as well in the area of eHealth workforce. That's why I just wanted to show you what's the important aspect of this task force and how important this task force in trying to solve some of the gaps. One of the most active universities in this initiative is King Saud University, that is trying to put together, innovate in the programs, the health informatics and nursing informatics, physician informatics programs that they are masterminding, and they have been rolling out. And by the way, one of the oldest universities in this region that has started the educating health informatics as a separate program, King Saud University. So again, some of the founding members of this initiative actually sit as partners or sit in the scientific board of this. You can see there is a huge Saudi influence in this initiative from the Council for Health Insurance and big players in the market as well. And again, I'm just scrolling down so you can see some of the players that actually sit on this huge initiative. Again, it was established sometime in 2018-17, I believe, and it was started as an idea. The committee, the conference, or the scientific committee has really great people. We're trying to schedule deep dive meetings with them, the likes of Professor Amr Al-Jamal. He's one of the well-known scholars in this university called King Saud University, and a number of other scholars from Kuwait and other neighboring countries and whatnot. Dr. Ahmed Balkhair is one of the founding members of this initiative. He used to be the director for the National Information Center, the Saudi National Information Center, or National Informatics Center as well. One of the upcoming players in the area of digital maturity of the kingdom. They're putting together a fantastic framework for measuring digital maturities and whatnot. Dr. Tamara Sumbul, very well-known speaker in the area of clinical informatics. She is a consultant, an ICU expert who has actually taken healthcare informatics to a different level in her John Hopkins Aramco Healthcare in that organization. And again, the list goes on and on and on. But I just wanted to give you a bit of the flavors of this huge initiative, because workforce sits at the heart of the big pain points for Saudi Arabia. Public health, again, they've just announced the creation of the Public Health Authority, PHA, Saudi Public Health Authority, which is, again, one of the most influential players in the area of tackling COVID. Public health, Saudi PHA is a very important player in driving a lot of the public health, public health policies. Again, a very interesting authority that has been spun off, and they are also part of the Saudi CDC as well. Again, the landscape is complex, so please bear with me, because all these entities are in a way kind of separate in their governance, but they influence and they coordinate with the other different areas. If I'm to draw you a map, I think one slide would not do it well. But again, just to give you some of these names as they come up and pop up in my head, you might not see them in the slides, but I'll try my best to give you a bit of an overview of all these different entities and players in the healthcare market. Okay, going back to the slide, just trying to make sure that you are not lost. From a healthcare informatics background, the Saudi Arabia has the Nafis program, which I've just explained, that brings in the HIE and the claims post office into operation, and also they are also adding disease registries on top of that. If you compare it to obviously Qatar and UAE, UAE has 3 HIE programs on every state. Saudi has 1 HIE program. And the beauty of the fact that Saudi did not decentralize their healthcare system until they've agreed on the national digital health agenda. And hence, they've started with the release 1, release 2 of the Nafis program, which allowed actually a bit of centralization from that era, from that perspective. Some of the big players in the EMR market in Saudi Arabia, and the beauty of Saudi market is that digital EMR market is not dominated by one player. There's multiple players, by the way. And there is local players, there's regional players, and there's international players. Again, from a perspective of centralized governance, the beauty of Saudi market is they are building and enforcing policies from a centralized perspective, specifically when it comes to the data residency and the privacy laws. Some of it is actually lacking behind if you compare it to the UAE and Qatar, but they are streamlining it from a centralized perspective. That's why I'm trying to show you all the different entities as we go through. Some of the data laws are coming out of, for example, Sadaya. Some of it is coming out of the Saudi National Health Informatics Center, and that's another area. So National HIC, Saudi National Information Center, which has another separate website, by the way. So I'm just opening all the websites for you. This is what, again, mandated to ensure the digitization and the awareness of the importance for digital mandate. And they are already celebrating over 18 million unified health records that has been already connected into the existing platforms. Again, with the huge number of electronic services across the healthcare ecosystem, they do run a number of, they do publish, and they have their standards, the e-health standards and indicators that has been accumulated when the National Health Information Center was established. Okay, going back to the slides. If you look at the expenditure, Saudi has the biggest share, and this has obviously the big share, and it's only going to go up, by the way. UAE will always be second to Saudi, and then you have the other countries. But this is just a quick slide that shows the importance of how much influence and how much emphasis Saudi is putting into healthcare. We'll talk a lot more numbers as we go into more slides. But one of the biggest movements that happened during COVID is the Riyadh Declaration. And again, this sets the map where Saudi is focused on, specifically the Riyadh Declaration 7 priorities. This was a regional conference that brought in the whole region together, and they've agreed on 7 key priorities: exploration and investment and research in the ideas of health intelligence, specifically improving decision support systems and clinical decision support mechanisms. Interoperability and the huge push for interoperable healthcare systems is evident across the region. Support for the adoption of artificial intelligence, and the lack of research has become also a priority. There is more research, they're more investment in research and innovation, and Saudi has been leading the way across this region. Another area, obviously, looking at the quality and effectiveness of digital technology. That's why we are looking at, obviously, at the moment, health technology assessment platforms and some sort of a framework to qualify and evaluate health technologies. Saudi FDA is a big player in this. They've adopted similar rules and policies like the US FDA, where they've actually, you are able now to register solutions as a medical device. However, if you have already done it in Saudi, in the USA or in Europe, sometimes this will fast track your registration. Health data governance. One of the deep dives, by the way, we're doing it with the SFDA, medical device expert, and pharmaceutical life sciences expert as well. So we're trying to bring you at least two personnels from Saudi FDA. Health data governance and the requirement for policies and regulation is a huge aspect, and again, it's one of the priorities. And then finally, communication, public health crisis and public health communication area. And Saudi has played a vital role in trying to learn from the COVID-19 in order to streamline this important aspect, bringing the public as an important player and co-create this digital health ecosystem. There is a number of recommendations, but again, I'll share the slides. You can actually go through some of the recommendations that are embedded regionally and locally within the kingdom. It's embedded in the health transformation plan. I'm more than happy to share that with you. I've already downloaded that document. It's in English and in Arabic, but I just want to show you that this, I hope I have the English version here, but I might just need to bring the English version to you. It has this is what we call the health transformation plan, where it's actually showing all the different initiatives and whatnot that has come on a kingdom level. In Arabic, it says program for health sector transformation. Okay. Any questions? We're gonna deep dive into KSA Health System, and I'm gonna share with you a few important aspects. So far, are you still okay? Have you got your coffee and tea?
All perfect, Mazen. Thank you very much. Please, I think we are ready to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Saudi, I thought, okay, what shall I start with? There's going to be a lot of acronyms, by the way. There's a lot of acronyms. NTP, MIC, MESA, MISA, MISA, SCHS. I need you to get acquainted with acronyms. And a lot of these acronyms are around us, but I try to collect as much acronyms as possible. So when the expert spoke earlier, you know what SADAYA is, what MISA is, what, for example, MODA is, Ministry of Defense. And by the way, Ministry of Interior, every acronym you see here is a health ecosystem, huh? Just to let you, to add to your confusion. So for example, You can go to Mod and say, listen, I have a platform, and they love it. They buy it from you. And then you can sell the same platform like 5, 10 different times. Again, these health ecosystems, they are almost in silo in the sense that they can actually do procurement separately. And you are able to participate separately. But don't forget, when it comes to supplying your standards or registering your solution as a medical device, you'll go through a centralized function. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Why am I saying this? So from IQVIA's perspective, if I give you IQVIA's perspective, our biggest pipeline of solution offering is actually in the Saudi health market. Because of the different players in the health market, you can actually formulate a number of relationships and whatnot. So again, keep that in your mind, keep it close to your heart. I will try to share with you some more acronyms as we go through. There's a lot of homework that I'm going to leave you with in preparation to your visit, hopefully next quarter 1 of 2023. So does that mean, Mazen, that we should come and move over to Saudi to live in there? I think, look, there's nothing better than doing business while you're there. You can always do the remote investigation, but being there helps a lot. Okay, so moving on to the next piece. What I wanted to share with you here is the actual, basically some basics about this healthcare sector transformation program and some of the healthcare capabilities. In Vision 2030, Saudi Vision, there is a lot of focus on in growing investments and activities across different economic sectors. Healthcare is one of the most important sectors that was highlighted in Vision 2030. So whenever you do your presentations in Saudi, always reference Vision 2030, because this is a most important North Star of the kingdom. Okay, that's why we have Vision 2030 National Transformation Program, NTP, and then we have the Health Sector Transformation Program, which stands for HSTP. Okay, so make sure that you are familiar with Vision 2030, the National Transformation Program, the Health Sector Transformation Program. A lot of the initiatives that are coming out in the government sector, which is this, will actually always relay or reference the Vision 2030. Some of the important aspects, Saudi wants to invest a lot in technology, research, and development. And that's why you will see a lot of focus on that. They are anticipating, by the way, a huge increase in population. They're already sitting at, I think, 38 million, and they are anticipating within 2 to 3 years to actually reach around double that amount. And also the aging profile of the population. This is a huge, the two main factors for driving aggressive transformation into healthcare: increasing population and the aging profile of this population. This will increase will fuel the increase for healthcare services. Don't forget the focus on the NCDs. National programs are there to tackle non-communicable disease and now communicable disease, and hence Public Health Authority has been spun off. What I want to share with you on the right-hand side is the focus on private sector participation. There's a huge focus. Some of the latest articles that came in yesterday, on the 19th, today, there was an article that there is a huge focus and push for Saudi Arabia to launch an industrial strategy that has a component within it on pharma life sciences to try and boost exports to reach over $140 billion. But at the same time, there is a move, a humongous push to bring in the private sector. That's why they're setting up and launching a performance index for how the private sector is being involved and participating in this huge transformation. And you can sense there is a huge drive for privatization in the Saudi Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So some basics. Saudi Arabia is a member of the Gulf Council, Corporate Council, and again, it has a very key and strategic geographical position. The capital is Riyadh, but there are so many other major cities. Riyadh has around 8 to 10 million people. Dammam is another city, a huge city, I think 2 to 3 million. Jeddah is a huge city, and I want you to focus on the Western region. The Western region is very active and vibrant. Don't forget, these are religious and destinations, and that's why the focus on, for example, public health informatics and innovation in the area of communicable disease, specifically as we have major pilgrimage seasons and religious site visit seasons, makes this region, the Western region, very vibrant. Now, if you get the chance to visit Jeddah, I'll definitely encourage you and advise you to do that. Population, again, 2020, around 32 million, 20 to, I think, 15 to 20% is non-nationals, and the rest are nationals. GDP, according to 2020, is 740 billion. The latest reports that came out of IMF, we've crossed the $1 trillion GDP in Saudi Arabia. So they've fast sped into that. At the moment, by the way, you've heard the letters PIF. Our previous panelists mentioned PIF or PIF, Public Investment Fund. Public Investment Fund is the the third biggest investment fund in the Arabic world, or the Arabic region, and it's, I think, number 8 or 9 worldwide. Norwegians are the first, I guess. But the Public Investment Fund is basically your biggest investment fund vehicle in Saudi Arabia, and their aim is to be within 2 to 3 years a $3 trillion investment fund. Just to keep that in mind. Again, the most important aspect as well, you can see that language Arabic. So some of the platforms, they might want it in dual language, English and Arabic. You might have to have an Arabic speaker. Sometimes if you want to set up shop within Saudi Arabia, it's always good and handy to have experienced Arabic speakers, because they prefer to conduct some of the implementation to include Arabic language in it. However, the vast majority of the nation actually speaks English, so you'll still survive, not a problem. But growing relationships, sometimes you might need that extra spice. Again, at the moment, there is a lot of reliance on oil, but there is huge diversification to move in foreign direct investment, to bring in more foreign direct investment into Saudi Arabia. I want to show you this, and I want you to marvel on this, because this is the complex structure of the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health itself, again, has been hosting, I think, over 500,000 workforce, right? They have 500,000 employees or something like that, some crazy number. And again, they've been modeled up with a lot of bureaucracy. They have a huge budget. Their budget is, I think, no less than 200. I think it's $200 billion per year, if I'm not wrong. I'll confirm that number. But again, they started decentralizing this ministry, and they spun off something called now the Health Holding Co. The Health Holding Co. is the name of the entity that will be operating the hospitals and the clinics that used to belong to the ministry. And the idea is the Health Holding Co. reports directly to the Public Investment Fund, PIF. So they've removed the operation of the hospitals and the clinics, and they concentrated the Ministry of Health on regulating only healthcare. That's it. And that's why they spun off different entities. Like, for example, they spun off an entity called Saudi Commission for Health Specialties. If you are a physician or a nurse, you want to get your license, you go to this entity, right? They spun off Saudi FDA. If you're a drug manufacturer, pharma life sciences company bringing drugs or products into Saudi, or medtech company or med device company, you need to register within the Saudi FDA. And that's why, to try and move all these functions outside the ministries, allowing the ministry only to regulate. So it's very important to understand the land of the lay of the land in Saudi. And as I promised you, the Saudi economy has crossed already $1 trillion in the first 2 quarters of this year. Plus the numerous giga projects that His Highness, or His Royal Highness, the Saudi Crown Prince, has been unveiling. NEOM is a big name now around the world. Has done a lot of a lot of movement and a lot of attraction in the area of investments and healthcare, logistics, and transportation and mobility. They are disrupting the world with this huge giga project called NEOM. So if you look at this slide, I just wanted to quickly give you a snippet of Saudi FDA. Again, Saudi FDA is a big vehicle that has been established to regulate, oversee, and monitor food, drug, and medical devices. They model themselves as the US FDA, right? They follow the same principles and somewhat more localized, but they, again, being an FDA approved device or solution as a device or a drug manufacturer, sometimes it gives you an advantage to speed and accelerate your Saudi FDA approval. Again, the Saudi FDA, it's a vehicle that looks at medical devices and drugs and life sciences. And I just wanted to share with you a report that just came out that the Saudi healthcare diagnostic market to reach $23 billion by 2027. More than happy to share that with you. The Saudis are expected to invest over $66 billion in the next 7 years. This is part of the Vision 2030. That's just looking at healthcare infrastructure. So again, a lot of promises, a lot of great initiatives as well. Saudis are, I mean, the nation or the Kingdom of Saudi is projected to be around 77 million people by 2050. 70% of the population below the age of 40 for now. But they are also forecasting a need to look at aging population as we move into late 2030 and whatnot. Life expectancy has improved drastically and is expected to continue to improve with their improvement of the health services. NCDs account for 68% of all deaths. So the focus of non-communicable disease is huge. RTA, road traffic accidents, is one of the biggest killers in Saudi Arabia, in addition to cardiovascular related diseases. A government vision, which is again translated through the National Transformation Plan, focuses on healthcare development. 15%, and it's increasing, by the way. Some other publications say 17% of the 2019 budget. 15% of the 2019 budget has been allocated to healthcare. I believe in 2022, this has grown up to 18.5 or reached the 20% mark. Foreign investors have 100% ownership. And if you listen to the actual, I'm going to share with you the video from Davos, where the Minister of Investment talks about how FDI, foreign direct investment, FDI, has increased by 30% in the last 2 years, which is, again, huge amount of investments coming in. And that shows the diversification that Saudi Arabia is planning in the coming years. The national program for the National Transformation Program targets for the Ministry of Health in 2020 included things like increasing the private healthcare expenditure to 35%, increase the number of licensed medical facilities to 100, increase the number of internationally accredited hospitals, and they've been pushing on JCI accreditation quite hugely. I know that the ICD-10 that has been deployed in Saudi Arabia is the Australian version, but they are now considering the establishment of a Saudi ICD standards, the International Court for Diseases, that allows a bit of flexibility, Australian or US ICDs. Right, increased the number or doubling the number of primary care visits per capita, and that brought in the advent of telemedicine, by the way. And there's also a number of other targets according to the National Transformation Program. Decreasing smoking and obesity is a big issue in Saudi Arabia, and then the actual critical care facilities and capacity has been pressured and challenged during COVID. And that shows the need for expansion in building more hospitals or acquiring more beds or thinking of telemedicine or virtual health. And then finally, the quality of preventative and therapeutic healthcare services has been also a huge area of improvement, in addition to digital health and innovation. So again, this is just a bit of a bit of understanding. One of the key points here in this slide I want you to focus on, look at this. They want to increase the number of beds by 20,000 beds by 2035. And they want to increase, obviously, the capacity of the workforce to add additional 13,000, to become or to reach 13,700 doctors by 2030. So that shows there is huge gap in the hospital facilities and the bed capacity, and a huge gap in the workforce, doctors and nurses. So, showing up some numbers. Saudi Arabia joins the rank of $1 trillion economy. This was a headline that I loved, and I thought I'll share it with you. Riyadh posted a budget surplus for the first time in 10 years, over 70 billion riyali, Saudi riyal, which is around $20 billion for the second quarter of this year, when oil revenues were up almost 90% year on year. So don't forget, folks, we are talking about in 2020, we're talking about 34 million people, and the number is increasing. Population is rising. Aging population is a huge issue, right? That they are forecasting. There is also a huge push since 2016, the mandatory unified health insurance program that has been designed and established since 2016. And there is a huge push to onboard more and more people on the unified national health insurance platform. I think 30% of the market is onboarded now and transacting. And again, some of the latest transaction figures can be shown in the CCHI or the CHI website. They actually publish real-time data as they collect them, I guess. And they are trying to drive more onboarding into that area. I think I have it here, CHI. Maybe I don't. Okay, so this is NHI. This is NHI. Okay, CHI, which is CHI. There you go. Okay, so I just quickly open that. Yes, the Council of Corporate Council for Health Insurance. There you go. That's the one. And they actually show, they publish regularly. They put some of the latest updated figures as well, latest news. I would love you to also always follow the chi.gov.sa, which actually manages and the actual owner of the platform. Again, if you look at the current stats, there is around 460 hospitals, private and public. We're talking about 69,000 healthcare beds at the moment. There is estimated an additional 20,000 more beds that needs to be added to this amount to match the need. There is around 13,700 doctors, additional doctors that needs to be added in 2030, by 2030. That's why these are huge gaps, by the way, folks. And that's why I want to show you the importance of, as we move into the economy is expanding, the population is expanding, the requirements for increasing the infrastructure or investing in the infrastructure in Saudi healthcare is mandated and becomes a focal point. One of the most important aspects is the women empowerment and in Saudi Arabia. Again, Saudi Arabia has been celebrating recently the women empowerment initiatives that they have initiated in the digital in general, specifically by looking at entrepreneurial ecosystem and bringing more and more female empowerment and female leaders. That's one key aspect. Another aspect that I wanted to share with you also, the amount of the expenditure in healthcare, or just to show you how the government contributes to the national health system. 78% of the contribution in healthcare comes from the government, which accounts to around 4 billion Saudi riyals. So I think the figure that I mentioned earlier, around 200, might be huge, but $4 billion, you can see the contribution is allocated only to the healthcare facilities, and that's your operational lump sum. If you look at the healthcare services in Saudi, started in 1926. So the Department of Health was actually established to, I mean, coming to 100 years almost soon. But again, the mandate that they run on under is free healthcare for everybody. And that's how they were running before the privatization and moving into a national health insurance or universal health insurance program. Saudi is the largest pharmaceutical market in the Middle East. And again, I'm going to repeat this a little bit more because the medical equipment market is estimated to be around $2 billion. And this figures, by the way, is 2020. These numbers are I think, a little bit before that. It's growing annually on around 20%. So medical equipment is a huge growing market. If you look at the mandate, and I keep saying privatization is a huge mandate of the Saudi government in order to drive the healthcare sector through this transformation. And you will see there's a huge drive for also IPOs, where they want to make sure that all the locally known companies can be investing in going public. They're driving towards more unicorns in Saudi Arabia. I don't know the ratio amount of unicorns for every 10,000 capital, but definitely it's not like Estonia, where Estonia is actually the dream nation for unicorns. However, Saudi is investing a lot to try and bring in a lot of innovation hubs into play and operationalize them to try and make sure that they are hosting the next unicorns as well in the region. Service provision and quality of efficiency of health system was one of the biggest issues. There's a report that I was reading earlier this week about the amount of waste in the healthcare system and how much money that you can actually save. And the numbers that actually I looked at was around $2 billion of or $20 billion of savings in the waste. Focus on wellness and prevention, another important area as we drive more privatization. Again, Saudi is envisaging to be the branded generics manufacturing hub of MENA. And I want you to keep this in mind when we organize the Saudi FDA one-to-one, because this is a huge push to try and generate more and more production into Saudi, or production facilities in Saudi, and explore areas to enriching the manufacturing and production, the pharma life sciences manufacturing sector. And then healthcare expenditure. Again, knowing that diabetes is one of the biggest pandemics that Saudi still suffers from, like Qatar and UAE, but there's a lot of work on working on a lot of innovation in the lifestyle diseases as well. So if you look at some numbers here, if I can just share with you, in 2018, healthcare expenditure grew from 159 billion Saudi riyals to over 172 billion Saudi riyals. And this shows the importance of healthcare expenditure in the region. If you look at the budget, the total budget on the lower slide, the total budget or the total expenditure, not just health expenditure, we're talking about the total Saudi expenditure is around $1 trillion. And that's very important because, again, the 9.5 increase versus the budgeted, there is around obviously increase in revenue as well. The 85 billion Saudi riyal deficit again has been, with this budget surplus, has been also reduced. What I wanted to also show you that there is increased private sector share of spending in the healthcare through alternative means of expenditure. Privatization has also has helped the agenda of PPP to drive partnerships with the private sector, medical cities, and again, if you look at the healthcare ecosystem in Saudi, you have the medical cities, those are the 1,000 beds and above. You have the small to medium to large enterprises from 800, 700 and below. And then you have the primary care centers. Medical cities in the Saudi health system operate on an autonomous fashion because they end up having their own budget. They kind of run their own strategies. And one of the most important medical cities that you need to get acquainted with is King Faisal Specialist Hospital Research Center. So, looking at the progress If you compare Saudi Arabia from 1980 to 2018, you'll see an increase, a huge improvement number of KPIs, indicators. Life expectancy has improved. Measles immunization rate has improved a lot. Under 5-year mortality rate per 1,000 capita has definitely, I think, improved from 90 to 8.5. So it's reduced from 90 per 1,000 capita to 8.5. Death rate per 1,000 capita has also reduced. Hospital beds per 1,000 capita has increased and yet to be increased even further. And likewise, physician per 1,000 capita. One of the actual interviewees his name is Steve Moore. He's an advisor to the Health Holding Co. He's agreed to actually jump on a 1-hour online deep dive with you. He has authored some of these slides as well that I'm sharing. He's agreed with me to share it, but I think it will give you the content that should be also discussed with him. He also presented this slide to look at the burning platform. Again, unhealthy lifestyle. They are actually trying to look at prevention hugely. They are trying to focus on non-communicable disease deaths and try to bring that down and benchmark it with Europe, for example, increase chronic disease conditions and how they can actually tackle this. So this shows that the Saudi health system is going through a rough period and is going to grow to go through the rough period as chronic disease will increase. Premature deaths needs to be tackled, and unhealthy lifestyles. Again, these are 3 indicators that the healthcare policymakers are looking at from Saudi's perspective. If you look at this slide, the benchmark, Saudi has improved in a lot of areas. If you look at this quadrant, better health, so 5 years lower life expectancy than OECD. Again, that needs to a lot of work that needs to be done. 3 to 22 times greater risk of maternal death than in key OECD countries. So there's a lot of improvement as maternal death is a huge issue. Dependence on imports. 75 to 80% of pharmaceutical products are coming from outside the kingdom. This shows you some of the red flags that we have in Saudi Arabia. And by the way, Saudi has a lot of rural areas. So you have a lot of villages and towns that are vast, and they are dispersed across the kingdom. That's one thing that you probably haven't seen in UAE, where UAE is, the urbanization of UAE is far much easier due to the small size. But again, Saudi, you have a lot of rural areas and hence contributing to aspects like maternal health and maternal death. Better workforce. Again, if you look at the one of the biggest aspects, 50% of the health workers are expats. And by the way, look at the shortfall in Saudi nurses, 35,000 shortfall in Saudi nurses, a huge demand. They have not enough workforce or not graduating enough nurses as well. 35% of the primary care physicians lack formal residency training. And this is a huge aspect because of the rush. I was talking to a company, a recruitment company that is based out of Saudi, in order to go around countries like Egypt, Sudan, Jordan, and actually recruit from graduation directly. So they go to the major universities that produce doctors and nurses in Sudan and Egypt and Jordan. Why do they target these countries specifically, Arabic speaking? Because when they place these doctors and nurses in rural areas, they know, English literacy is another big issue, especially for your elderly care. Again, this is a huge and humongous area of improvement that needs to happen. Better care. If you look at this again, 2 times hospital-associated infection than international benchmark. And again, I would love you to, when we arrange the Steve Moore interview, it's very important to understand these are areas of innovation that could actually help us reduce hospital-associated infection. If you look at the average length of stay in specialist hospital is 2 to 2.5 times the international benchmark. Saudi General Public Hospital have twice as longer average length of stays. And I haven't even gone into the no-shows. One of the biggest issues that I looked at when I was at PwC the amount of no-shows in the rural hospitals, the small to medium hospitals that are located in the eastern or western provinces, or the southern provinces as well. Better value, 6.5% annual growth in total health expenditure, and that's huge. And that's bigger than the OECD annual growth, expenditure growth. 30%. That's why I wanted you to actually, if you get a chance to visit Riyadh in the next coming days, there's a huge health economics conference in Riyadh orchestrated by Dr. Mashail. 30% of productivity cap compared to OECD. And then finally, 4 times higher spending on health system administration. So again, these are a kind of an accumulated data that was published by Health Holding Co. for the benefit of you guys when you come in and understand the headaches in Saudi Arabia. That's why if you look at some of the main drivers for health expenditure, and again, look at the healthcare expenditure estimates for Ministry of Health and other government organizations, 2019 and 2030. Look at the expenditure is projected to grow, okay, to reach over 186 billion Saudi riyal. So the figure that I quoted earlier, 200 billion, was not in dollars, it is in riyal. That's what I wanted to project. So the health expenditure, or the estimated expenditure of the Ministry of Health, actually has grown to over, will grow to over 186 billion riyals. Again, this is a very important aspect as expenditure will grow. If you look at some of the expenditure increase in demographic changes, so Saudi nationals, right, drivers for expenditure, you have 22 million Saudi nationals, that is growing to be 25 million. Saudi 65 plus years, so the elderly, I guess the elderly segment of the Saudi is gonna grow to double up between now and 2030. Diabetic patients are also on the increase to 2030. Cancer patients are it's again 29% increase, and then hypertension is also gonna be increasing. So looking at these numbers and projected by the Health Holding Co., we are seeing a huge strain and pressure on the health system in the government as well as in the private sector. Physician Saudization. So this is again a projection to how many physicians are Saudi nationals as opposed to international. This is projected to grow to 70%. Nursing Saudization is also gonna grow to 65%. Saudization is the term that we use to indicate national versus non-national workforce. So get also familiar with that. From a CapEx perspective, public hospital beds is actually projected to increase hugely in the coming years. So if I look at the way that the Ministry of Health has been shaken and has been transformed, they've spun off 2 things. One is the Health Holding Co. If you look at my slide here, the Health Holding Co. is the name of the operator of all the public sector hospitals that belongs to the ministry. I'm not talking about the National Guard. I'm not talking about the Ministry of Defense and Aviation, MODA. I'm not talking about the Ministry of Interior Health Systems. I'm talking only about the Ministry of Health. So this is a government-owned company that belongs to the PIF. PIF is basically the entity, the Public Investment Fund, that is that actually is chaired and managed by His Highness the Crown Prince. And that shows you that the funding of the Holding Co. comes directly from PIF. Meanwhile, the ministry, its funding comes from the Ministry of Finance, a very well-equipped ministry that has been funding the Ministry of Health for the last 20 years. But now they've managed to segregate the operation arm from the regulator arm. Not only that, they created a national vehicle for health insurance. It's called the Center for National Health Insurance, to cover all the citizens of Saudi Arabia. That is projected to around 22 million Saudis in the public sector. So this is a vehicle that looks after the public sector national insurance. The CHI, the other entity that I was just sharing with you, this entity is actually a healthcare authority that was created to manage and regulate the health, insurance in the private sector. Okay, so don't forget, two health insurance schemes. One is for the public sector, right? And one for the private sector. Is the new payer for the public sector. Okay, let me just go down. So this is the transformation, the major transformation that has happened in the Ministry of Health of Saudi Arabia. And this is why it's really important to understand the new map of the healthcare ecosystem. What you see is the way that the healthcare public sector has been clusterized or segmented into clusters. So you see different regions or units. So we have the central region, we have the eastern region, we have the western region, and every region is divided into a cluster. The cluster is actually, it's mathematically holds this amount of, this amount of population, this amount of beds, and this amount of population per primary care centers, public or primary healthcare centers. Okay, so this is the basis from which the clusters have been divided across the Saudi kingdom. That's why you have over 22 or 23 different clusters divided into units or zones or regions, and these regions are then projected and forecasted to lead the decentralization of budgeting, regulating, and managing the healthcare services on a region level. And that's the idea. You take the Ministry of Health, divide it into 5 regions, and then you empower those 5 regions to self-finance, to self-regulate, and to self-manage and operate. I hope that explains the word clusters, 20+ clusters. And each cluster, by the way, now is funded by the Public Investment Fund. So for example, now if I'm a company that offers patient portal, you can actually go to every cluster and look at how you can offer this through their cluster procurement process. So it's definitely a market disruptor. And it shows the amount of information that you can actually, the amount of possibilities and opportunities that you can participate in, either direct or with partners. Okay, so it's very important to understand this cluster formation. Each cluster is now based on their maturity. Some of the clusters, I think out of the 20, there is the top 5 mature, digitally mature clusters. And if you come to some of the conferences in Saudi, especially the Global Health Exhibition Conference, and please, for next year, you must attend this one. It's every October, Global Health Exhibition. When you go there, you will see clusters actually exhibiting in the conference, because they are now a jurisdiction in its own. They have their own EMR, they have their own patient portals, they have their own procurement services, they are looking at their population health. These clusters are then projected to be the accountable care organizations of the future. And this is what the Saudi health system is projected to transform into. They are decentralizing, privatizing, and they are corporatizing the public sector. Okay, think about the potential aspect of these clusters and how they will be drivers for value-based care. That's why they've actually put a framework. There are a number of consultancies, and just FYI, Saudi spends $50 billion in consultancies on a yearly basis across all industries. That's why you'll see a lot of great content and a lot of great direction. This is, again, the ACO framework and model of care that has been developed by a number of consultancies and perfected for the implementation in Saudi, in the Kingdom of Saudi. And again, this is a beauty because this shows you how they are building each cluster to actually mature up into this framework, from a leadership governance to change management, to care delivery, to population health management and whatnot, supported by the infrastructure of e-health, workforce, and technological infrastructure shared services. Again, this was presented by the holding co, and it's part of the direction of where these clusters are heading towards. At the moment, one of the most aspects, there are different gates, gate 1, gate 2, and I think gate 3. What they're looking at, in every gate, each cluster has to go through a maturity assessment level where they assess their leadership and governance culture, change management and communication, population health, care delivery, financial management. They start building this component with every milestone within every gate in order to mature up for these clusters to mature up to be fully functional ACOs. Again, this is a huge amount of aspect, and every component within each and every gate represents a number of procurement opportunities in order to build enablement. At the bottom, if you can see, each gate represents the framework, right? So from leadership perspective to population health, financial management, delivery, care delivery perspective, all the way to data management and whatnot. Again, I hope this was helpful. Just double checking with you guys.
All well, Mazen. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated.
Sure. Look, we have 15 minutes left, and I have to drop by literally 5 p.m. And I have 3 sections left, and I just want to give you that capability to record this information as well. Shall I go through it and expect not to take questions, or would you like me to leave the questions when we do the deep dives?
I would suggest that we use this 15 minutes right now. You will go it through briefly. We record it, and we will take the questions after this presentation in a like a writing format.
Okay,
written
perfect.
format.
Perfect. And again, any one-to-one, these questions, we can also bring them up again and discuss them in the one-to-one interviews. Okay, so I have 3 sections. Thank you again. One quick section that I wanted to present to you on the ICT strategy. We have a Ministry of ICT, by the way, one of the most proactive ministries in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They've come up with this huge ICT sector strategy. Okay. It's a general framework that then deep dives into different industries. But you look at this strategy, and it's available for you online if you want to download it and read through it. It looks at all the important aspects, from telecommunication infrastructure to traditional IT infrastructure to emerging technology infrastructure. And it looks at this as one of the most important pillars to drive innovation and digitization in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Across all different industries. What I wanted to share with you here is the focus on even the ICT, Ministry of ICT has a digital health endeavor and excitement, specifically when it comes to building innovation and whatnot, which means that the Ministry of ICT is another great opportunity for you to interact with. The minister of the ICT minister is actually present in the video clip that I want to share with you. If you are not on the WhatsApp group, please circle back with Ege and Romer to actually come up on the WhatsApp group. I'll put a lot of the information there. But Minister of ICT, his name is Aswaha, His Excellency Dr. Aswaha. He is actually the ex-regional managing director of Cisco. So the guy is well educated from the US and very, very powerful and very visionary. So I just wanted to give you that because this will help you open up another portal of opportunities with the Ministry of ICT. Okay, medical devices in KSA. And this is an important aspect. I've developed 3 or 4 slides, wealth of information. I want you to take your time and read through them as well. These reports that I'm showing, by the way, are all generated and available as well. Invest Saudi is one of the most important vehicles of getting information from as well. But I want to show you the medical device industry in Saudi Arabia. And the idea here, it's projected and valued to be about $3.5 billion. And the increase is, it's growing at 15% per year. Okay, but I want to share with you that that the medical device business in Saudi is considered small business. It's still huge potential to grow. right? On the right-hand side, I even given you an indication of the different subcategories within the medical device categories, from consumables, disposables, to all the way to complementary therapy equipment, and the percentage of representation from each. Again, this is very valuable. Please, it's only some of these figures are for your use and only your use, not distribution. And please, when you have the slides, it's for your benefit as well as you come into the kingdom. The other area is the potential import versus export. Medical devices mostly are imported in Saudi Arabia. 87% of the medical devices are imported. And that shows the potential for growing local manufacturing capabilities, which is one of the criteria of the industrial strategy that was launched. Keep that in mind. If I look at the report as well in more details, there are 44 local manufacturers of medical devices in Saudi Arabia. 14 are the top local manufacturers like Damad, Mais, and Inaya. I gave you these names just so you can remember them when you attend the global exhibition or the medical device conferences that they have in Saudi. These are potential partners and could be AKA investors. Okay, top multinational leading companies, they actually are the rest of the 44. I guess they are the rest of the big players in the medical device industry, the likes of GE, Philips, Medtronic. One of the names that I got today onto the to be interviewed is a Medtronic representative, a Saudi lady who is actually part of the market access and health economics lead in Medtronic. I would love you to actually speak to her as well. I'll make sure that we arrange that. We also have a number of people from Baxter that are lined up for you. So we have a good variety of people that could actually be of support and information for you. You can, some of those multinational companies, they are directly marketing and contracting the organizations locally in healthcare for their medical device, and sometimes they go through distributors. There are a number of major distributors, and I've given you some names like Al-Faisaliya, Ascend, Healthcare Solutions, Salihiyya, and so on and so forth. Keep those in mind because these are huge, important targets for you if you are to collaborate with them. Medical device benchmark of Saudi Arabia, if you look at it from different countries, the likes of Brazil, Egypt, China, Turkey. Okay, I mean, there's huge amount of expansion that needs to be built within the Saudi. Look at the local manufacturing capability, which is around 13% of the whole market of medical devices, and it's again very low exports, mainly of disposables and consumables. There is huge potential. I mean, as it is, we are bringing foreign direct investment of around $4.2 billion in 2018. That's why Saudi Arabia is focusing on this. When you do the benchmark, look at the amount of expansion and growth that can happen in a big nation like Saudi Arabia. Again, I'm putting together a quick SWOT analysis for you about the medical device industry in Saudi Arabia that allows you to see where are the weaknesses, the threats. And again, I'm not showing you the full report. This is a 200-page report that was contracted by a consultancy, millions of dollars spent on that. I'm just going to give you the gist of it. And some of the local manufacturing power heads in Saudi Arabia are mentioned there. But again, the major aspects, the maturity of the local manufacturers and the areas of growth sits around capacity and capabilities, product portfolio, financial stability, strategic direction, competition, and market access. Again, these are some of the major elements and drivers to drive the maturity of the local manufacturers. Again, pay attention to also the SWOT analysis. It helps you look at why Vision 2030, why the National Transformation Program, why the Health Sector Transformation Program plan has also come into existence. Biotech in KSA, another, I think, another exciting area I wanted to share with you. Looking at this, the vision for 2030 is to try and invest and expand on the biotech sector in Saudi Arabia. Look at the figure on the right-hand side, and you will understand the potential need for R&D. Saudi Arabia sits at from a maturity perspective and basically from a production perspective, research in biotech sits very low. However, this is the huge push of the strategic direction of Vision 2030 to try and bring this back again on the table, bring in more investment locally, and bring in FDI into it as well. Don't forget the big stakeholder names for research for biotech. I've listed them down there as well for your benefit. King Abdullah in red, King Abdullah City for Science and Technology, KAXT, King Saud University, KSU, King Abdulaziz University, KAU, King Khalid University, KKH, Ministry of Agriculture, MOA, King Fahad Medical City, KFMC, and finally King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST, KAUST. Again, they have, some of them have started their innovation accelerators. They are bringing in a lot of investments locally and internationally. They are lining up with world-class innovation hubs to try and bring more research into the kingdom. If you look at this, the global biotech market is ought to grow to over $700 billion. And hence, Saudi Arabia is eyeing this up as an important aspect that they should invest in, knowing that they have some relatively mature research capabilities in comparison to other GCC countries. If you look at, obviously, the applications in biotech, they are looking across the norm, biotech in medical, agriculture, industrial, and others. Now there is a huge focus on food security as well. Saudi Arabia is eyeing out the energy crisis and the conflicts around the world, and coming out of COVID, where supply chain and logistics become a huge priority in Saudi, knowing the size of Saudi. Keep that in mind, guys. Based on the technology, Saudi is following this focus area to be a huge in demand. From a biotechnology innovation score, the report itself actually showed that the Saudi scores, if you compare it to other countries, relatively low, and they can improve. There's a huge amount of improvement that can be done. From a survey that was conducted by Alpen Capital, Saudi Arabia biotech industry is estimated to grow to $45 billion, with the growth percentage of, has grown or estimated to grow, and has shown relatively highest growth in the last 2 years. So it's estimated to grow to $45 billion, and that's a huge potential. KSA biotech sector is recognized as one of the major 11 strategic priorities of the national policy of science and technology. Mudun, which stands for Saudi Authority for Industrial Cities and Technology Zones, is huge, by the way. It's a huge investment vehicle that BIF has invested in, are seeking investment in biopharma complex, and that's a huge endeavor with potential total investment of over 570 million Saudi riyals. Saudi currently stands at at a place of 40 out of 54 countries on the biotech innovation score, which is a score of 27 out of 100. However, Saudi presence in the global biotech patents is almost negligible, and that's a huge aspect. Research is a huge aspect for the Saudi vision, and that's why I'm putting some target points for you, pointers, of where you can actually look at biotech partners. KAXT is an important partner. National Biotechnology Center has a huge amount of investment in biotech programs and projects. Other research organizations with acronyms, by the way, so I know I'm going to bore you to hell with acronyms. Companies, universities, top-line management, research centers are popping up, excellence centers, and then finally science and agriculture, with agriculture being also, by the way, a huge aspect in Saudi Arabia. In conclusion, in the last 2 minutes, Saudi Arabia is a huge opportunity for expansion, and again, Estonia can definitely benefit from this opportunity and potential. Number one, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Index says it all in terms of the lack of skills and the need for skilling up, the need for more access to corporate and business finance, and government support, as well as from an index perspective, Saudi Arabia is definitely has scored hugely, first out of 45 countries, with possibilities that could actually shown in good opportunities to start a business, and they've scored highly in other aspects. What I wanted to share with you is key messages. You have to be aligned and present in person as well. Whenever you get a chance, the opportunities of to actually shake hands and get to know people and talk to people. It's definitely one of the best parts of Saudi Arabia is the human-to-human interaction. Seldomly could we actually close deals during COVID online. We always had to actually jump on a plane and travel whenever the possibilities have allowed us to. What I wanted to share with you, we spent a wonderful time in Global Health Exhibition, me and Romer, exploring the possibilities. But I would like to invite you to come because, again, the possibilities of utilizing opportunities, and this slide summarizes some of the main opportunities, similar to a similar slide that I shown when I actually presented the UAE's deck. But the idea is there is a lot of work in connectedness. Saudi definitely followed the UK NHS model, but they are decentralizing and they are actually corporatizing their healthcare system. Opportunities across the board. And again, if you go to the healthcare facilities perspective, you can provide possibilities across these different categories. And it allows you to explore where you can actually bring in. Track and trace is actually one of the biggest investment vehicles as well, opportunities in Saudi Arabia. Again, Arab Health is a great opportunity to meet a lot of Saudis. So yes, Saudi Arabia presence, this huge Saudi pavilion. GITEX last week, we had huge Saudi presence. And I would have loved you to be in GITEX because Saudi health technologies were also present in the region. Reminding you of the big players. LEAP is a big conference coming up in February, advising you to be that. The AI Summit in Saudi is another big conference. Track and keep it also close. HIMSS, Health Information Management System Society, they have a Saudi version, which gonna be between the 19th and 21st of November. And that's it. Thank you. By the way, Bupa is a big player in Saudi market.
So, Mazen, thank you so much. I think it has been such a wonderful and detailed information, and definitely it's a lot of information. So I'm very thankful that we have recorded this webinar, so people can go over some topics again and again, because there are so many details, so much information on the slides, the additional information on the slides. So thank you very much, and see you next time. And thank you everybody for attending today.